Dr. Boykin, those are some nice glasses.
I know.
Boynton.
I
We
was
are
saying the
ready,
same
about to go
thing.
live in 5, 4, 2.
Greetings, and thank you all for joining our last forum. We are honored to have you here today, and wanted to just bring greetings today to let you all know that, today was the first day of early voting. We saw a lot of constituents going out to the polls, which is, good because we were nervous with this whole pandemic if we were getting the word out to make sure people were getting to the polls. So again, thank you for participating in this virtual forum. We're looking to continue to educate our constituents as they go out to the poll. I want to thank Councilwoman Willis for co-partnering with me on this virtual forums that we did across all of the races, because we do believe that our communities are very actively engaged and want to make sure that they are well equipped when they go to the polls. I also would like to thank our moderator for tonight, Dr. Maria Boynton. We're looking forward to a very educative, informative debate. Well, not debate forum, I'm sorry. So we're looking forward to that. We will now have some greetings that will be brought forth by my colleague, Councilwoman Willis, and you will also hear from Elise Fisher, who is part of the Cedar Grove Community Club.
Good evening. I am Councilwoman Helen Zenobia Willis, and thank you for joining us this evening. I want to thank, first of all of the candidates. We have 100% participation for Senate District 39 and Senate District 35. I represent Cliftondale community and Welcome community. Councilmember Gums and I, districts are closely aligned, and both of our districts encompass District 35 and District 39. I live in District 39, and Senator Nakima Williams is my senator. And thank you for your service, Senator Williams. And thank you for your service, Senator Donzella James. We literally have one street that separate the two districts. And historically, districts 2 and 3 have turned out, we have the most registered voters, but we have turned out the highest voters when in elections, and that's districts 2 and 3 combined. We have some very engaged residents. We have our residents who are very astute, and we just want to make sure that we're providing them the information they need to make an informed decision when they go to the polls to vote starting today. Many of us have received our ballots, our absentee ballots as of Friday, and they were mailed out all over the weekend. And so I received texts from several residents today asking who they should vote for. So that tells me that we have a lot of education to do, because some residents still don't know and they're confused on who they should vote for. And so this is the purpose of these forums, and I'm not going to prolong it, but thank each of you for your willingness to serve. Thank you to the candidates who are currently serving, and good luck to each of you.
Elise.
Hi, this is Elise Fisher representing the Cedar Grove Community Association. We are in District 35, District 4 in the city of South Fulton. We also believe this is a very important election year. Many key leadership roles are in play, and we here in Cedar Grove believe that forums like this make it easier for all of us to learn about the candidates and develop our own points of view, so that we can make more informed decisions, whether we vote in the ballot box or whether we use the ballots that come in the mail. Thank you again, all candidates, for joining us tonight, and I am sure the viewing audience will find this a worthy use of their time. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're about to get started. I want to take the time to introduce tonight's moderator, Dr. Maria Boykin. I will be sharing a few snippets of her bio. It is very well versed, but I will tell you a little bit about Dr. Boykin. Dr. Maria Boykin is in the News and Public Affairs Director for Intercom Media Atlanta. In that role, Dr. Boynton supervises the news and traffic reporters for V103, WAOK, and 929 The Game. She also oversees all public affairs programming for Intercom Station Star 94.1. Maria is also the morning news anchor for V103 and WAOK. Dr. Boynton also produces, edits, and anchors long-form segments for public affairs programming for V103, WAOK, Star 94.1, and 92.9 The Game. She received her Bachelor's of Art degree from Albany State University in Albany, Georgia. Dr. Boynton also received a Doctor of Philosophy and Humane Letters degree from Trinity International University of Ambassadors. Also, before joining Intercom Radio in Atlanta, Maria spent more than a decade at the CNN radio station as a supervising producer, coordinating producer, and news anchor. Maria is a recipient of a resolution by the Georgia House of Representatives for her career and community contributions. She was also honored as an international trailblazer. She has also been named among Atlanta's top 100 Black women of influence by the Atlanta Business League. She is a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Welcome, Dr. Boynton.
Thank you very, very much to everyone here this evening. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your forum. To the councilwomen, to Mrs. Fisher, thank you all so very, very much. This evening, we hope to parlay to you a wealth of information. Some you may have known, you may need a refresher on when it comes to politics in your area, and some it may be new to you. For the candidates, thank you for joining us this evening. Just want to do a little bit of housekeeping here. Your opening statements will be 2 minutes. 2 minutes. We have a timekeeper who has a hatchet, not really, but you will hear the buzzer. So, of course, in those opening statements, you have to let us know how long you've been a resident of Fulton County. Why did you decide to run for office of Senate District 3539? What's your vision for the district? And of course, we need all of that included in your 2-minute opening statements. Also, we have questions from myself, the moderator, and residents that have been submitted in advance. You have 90 seconds to respond to the question, or you will face the buzzer. In your candidate closing statements, you have 90 seconds again, and each candidate is expected to answer again the following questions in their opening statements. How long have you been a resident of the county? Why did you decide to run? And what's your vision? So ladies and gentlemen, are we ready to start this evening?
Yes.
Ready.
I will take that as a yes. And of course,
Yes.
candidates, keep your cameras on and remain in your quiet and professional setting. Okay, everybody? All righty. The first question this evening, and we'll start with Senator Donzella James. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. The incumbent, why are you running for office at this time, and what uniquely qualifies you for this seat, do you feel?
Well, I'm a lifelong resident of South Fulton, and I have my roots here. My husband, my late husband and I chose to be here and raise our children here. And I'm still here because I care about this district. I feel that I'm the architect of the city of South Fulton. I did a lot of things, championed a lot of issues over the years, including stopping the racetrack that was going to be at 285 and Camp Creek Parkway. And as a result, with the then mayor, Pastor Joe Hilliard, worked to bring all those stores there in Camp Creek. So every time I pass there, I feel like a proud mama. And when we had the three-year anniversary of the city, after I had worked very hard to pass the legislation for the city of South Fulton, and also I was on the transition committee named from the then governor, I felt the same way, like a proud mother, because I worked very hard for many years to get that passed. Now, also, I'm the author of the Sexual Child Commerce Act of 2002, which was the first piece of legislation that was passed on human trafficking in the state of Georgia. I also passed a bill for our environment, zero waste by 2020, because we had so many landfills in our area, and I wanted to reduce the waste stream in our area. And one of the places that got closed up is now our amphitheater for the new city of South Fulton. So, you know, my roots are deep. My family still lives here. My mother still lives in the city of South Fulton, and 3 of my sisters and their families. So this is, I have a vested interest, and that's why I'm running again, because there's so much work to be done with this covert 19.
Okay, that's the buzzer. Thank you, Senator James. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. Same question to you, State Senator, the incumbent, Nakima Williams. Why are you running for office at this time, and what uniquely qualifies you for this seat?
Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm State Senator Nakima Williams, and I am honored to be here this evening. I am proud to be the current senator for Senate District 39, which I've held this seat for the past 2 years. In 2 years, I've been able to step into this position and grow in ways that I never imagined. Seeing the needs of this district based on 5 different municipalities that I represent, from Buckhead in Atlanta to Southwest Atlanta, where I live, East Point, College Park, Union City, and the city of South Fulton, I see the vast differences and the ways that each constituent deserves to be represented. When I decided to run for this district, my husband and I were raising our son in the shadows of $1 billion stadium, and we needed a new senator because our Senator Vincent Ford stepped down to run for mayor of the city of Atlanta. I stepped up to run for this seat because I believe that everybody deserves the opportunity to thrive and not just survive. Survival is the bare minimum and the floor of what we should expect from elected officials. We should be working to make sure that everyone has the opportunities and the skill sets so that they can thrive in our society. As a state senator, I've worked to make sure that we had equal playing fields by introducing early voter registration so that you can register on the day of election. I have also worked to make sure that we've had fair representation in the redistricting process. You can look at Senate District 39 and see where it runs from Lenox Mall all the way down Old National Highway and wonder how these lines were drawn. It's gerrymandering at its finest. And so that's why I've introduced an independent redistricting committee to make sure that elected officials are not picking their constituents, constituents are picking their elected officials. In addition to that, I knew that my work could not stop in the confines of district lines, and I stepped up to become the very first Black woman to ever chair the Democratic Party of Georgia, because in order to get this right, we have to have leadership all across the state. And so I am proud to be the state senator from District 39, and I look forward to earning the support of my neighbors so that I can continue to represent you, because there's more work to be done. Thank you, Maria.
Incumbent senators, I must say my apologies to you. You were supposed to be making opening statements, and I was quick to get to a question. So to the incumbent, Senator Donzella James, and to Senator Nakima Williams, if there is something you'd like to add to that as part of your opening statements, I'm going to allow that. But if you feel that would suffice, that's good too.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I guess I wanted to make sure that I let everyone know how hard we're working right now as the chairperson of the Interstate Corporation Committee. I'm honored to have a core committee chairmanship and be in, I guess, the administrative part of the Senate. I mentioned the Sexual Child Commerce Act of 2002 that I passed, but also just a couple of years ago, I also passed another most important piece of legislation for sex trafficking, and that was to put the signs in all of the public bathrooms of airports and bus stations, etc., beauty shops, anywhere, public buildings. And it did pass, and it is working. It has a 1-800 number on it, and we're helping. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
State Senator Williams, did you want to add just a few seconds?
I tried to collapse everything into my remarks, but Maria, I've lived in Fulton County for 18 years. I moved to Atlanta looking for more opportunities when I finished college. I've been here 18 years. I'm raising my family here. My 4-year-old son, Carter, my husband, Leslie, we live in Southwest Atlanta, and I am honored to be the senator for this district. We are engaged in our community. I serve on a number of different boards, and I work with my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha. I know that, not your sorority, Maria, but I work with my sorority sisters throughout the community to do voter registration drives to make sure that we're truly giving back to our community, because I am proud to live here and continue to uplift the voices of the most marginalized that I serve.
Thank you very much, Senators Williams and James. And we will continue with opening statements now. Dr. Kelly Johnson, we're prepared for you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Maria, to hosting this forum. Thank you to Councilwoman Helen Willis and also Councilwoman Gums, who's my councilwoman. I actually live in Council District 2, and I've been in the city of South Fulton, or District 35, for the last 8 years. Some of the conversations that started the cityhood movement actually started in my living room. And it started with a feasibility study and can we do this? And I was one of the ones that actually started this movement to cityhood and to ensure that we have our own local representation as well as more power. So a little bit back from me. I'm originally from Mississippi, rural parts of Mississippi. My mom would call me a smart kid with a big mouth. And I've been in that all of my life. I've been a smart kid with a big mouth. So essentially, for me, making this transition to office seemed like the right thing to do, because I demonstrated, the fact that I am a scholar, that I have a PhD in public policy. I've moved through the Navy as a nuclear trained soldier. And so I wanted to basically implement my vision of Georgia onto Georgia. So some of the most important things to me, my biggest priorities, are climate change. This is something that I've heard a lot of residents say about environmental impacts, especially in minority areas. So with climate change, we can actually start to address a lot of those issues. For me, the biggest things are to take away solar panels. We have to make sure that families become energy independent. And also increasing the structure for electronic vehicles, because that's getting us ready for the next wave of the types of cars that we will offer. Next thing is legalizing cannabis. I think cannabis is a huge opportunity because it will bring to light a lot of the businesses that are currently going on. I said because,
If you could please mute your devices, everyone. It is interrupting the forum. Dr. Johnson?
Dr.
right.
Johnson has used 2 minutes.
You're finished, Dr. Johnson? I believe he's completed. Okay. Karen Ashley, your opening statements, please.
Yes. Good evening, and I'm honored for the opportunity to provide the voters of District 35 a brief look into the person who is seeking to become your next state senator. I am Karen Ashley, born and raised in Southwest Atlanta. I'm a graduate of Tuskegee Institute, which has been currently renamed to Tuskegee University. My husband and I have called South Fulton County home for 29 years, and together we have raised 3 daughters. I've spent 35 years in the public sector, identifying the needs of Georgians and helping them access the best resources and services to address those needs. I've accomplished this by working with political leaders, small businesses, healthcare providers, state agencies, and community groups across the metropolitan Atlanta region. My professional standards, integrity, passion, and my genuine love for serving others is why I'm being purposed for this opportunity. Because I believe for democracy to work, every person's voice matters. If there are those whose voice is weaker, They deserve special focus and help. And I've dedicated my life to lifting up the voices of those in need of help. Our public schools need help. Our healthcare system needs help. Our criminal justice system is in need of help. Our safety net programs need help. The leaders in our state government have a moral obligation to help strengthen these institutions. And I seek your support and your vote in being a part of those who will provide that help. Thank you, and may God bless this forum.
Thank you, Ms. Ashley. Ms. Pritchett, your opening statement, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Linda Pritchett, and I am running to be your next state senator in District 39. And the reason that I am a longtime resident of the city of South Fulton. I've lived here over 15 years with my children who went to school here and grew up here. And my husband, who is a former state legislator, moved from Mississippi to marry me. And we're here very happy in South Fulton. I have worked for the city of South Fulton. I have fought for the city of South Fulton, and I will continue to fight for the interests of the city of South Fulton and South Fulton region. Now, the reason that I am running is because in my district, we are experiencing a leadership crisis. We have a state senator that we rarely see, that we rarely hear from, and has not addressed any of the issues that we face in our communities with legislation of her own. In fact, we haven't had any legislation come out of Senate District 39 since Vincent Ford left. And it's simply something that we are not used to. 3 years ago, I ran for this seat, and although I did not win, I remained very vocal and involved in my city, my community, and my district. I attended HOA meetings, MPU meetings, city council, commission meetings, election board meetings, and I have been very outspoken on behalf of the community concerning issues that impact us. I've also continued to publish my community newsletter that has had over 100 editions where we have informed people. So what my vision is for the district is to bring effective leadership. I believe the people deserve someone who can focus on introducing and passing meaningful legislation to improve the quality of life for all of us in the areas of education, economic development, dealing with blight in our communities, and criminal justice reform. I have a background in criminal justice. I have a bachelor's degree, and I have been a certified paralegal over 15 years. I've worked with attorneys, and I dedicated myself to helping people. So again,
thank you very much, Ms. Pritchett. Thank you very, very much. We're going to allow for a rebuttal. State Senator Nikema Williams, if you care, to do so. In her opening statement, Linda Pritchett basically pointed at you and said that the district currently has a state senator who is rarely seen, rarely heard from. State Senator Nikema Williams, would you care to respond to that?
Absolutely, Maria. First of all, you can look at my record and see exactly what I've done as I've been in this seat for 2 years. 2 years, which we have not even finished the second legislative session yet. So Ms. Pritchett does not quite know what is happening. And if she was actually serving as I am, then she would understand how the legislative process works. Maria, I've hosted town hall meetings to keep my constituents informed. I've hosted screenings to make sure that people know how to protect their right to vote. I even got arrested and went to jail standing with my constituents to make sure that their right to vote was protected. And I am leading in a statewide position, making sure that all of our voices are uplifted as we go out throughout this process. Ms. Pritchett.
Thank you, State Senator Williams.
Does not
Thank you.
Substitute for a current sitting state senator.
Thank you very much. The rebuttals, everyone, 60 seconds. And I will offer that time to you when I see and hear that you are personally approached by someone in their statements. Okay, so we will continue that first question that I asked. Why are you running for office at this time, and what uniquely qualifies you for this seat? And we're going to start with Karen Ashley. Please answer the questions, Ms. Ashley.
Yes. The reason that I'm running for this seat is it's just a natural fit for what I have done my entire life. whether or not serving people compassionately and serving those who live in the margins of our society, whether or not that qualifies as being unique, it is what's needed. We have a population of people who feel totally left out of the process, of our political process, and they need voices. They have voices that they want to have heard. I have worked, as I said, for 35 years as a case manager and a fraud investigator with Fulton County Department of Family and Children's Services. I've served as a property manager with the Atlanta Housing Authority, and in my current position as Director of Resident Services, I serve those individuals who make less than $780 a month, and I've advocated for them for medical help. I've advocated for them to be a part of their government, and it is for those reasons that I seek this office, to be a voice for those who usually don't have a voice at the table.
All righty. Thank you very much, Ms. Ashley. Dr. Johnson, please answer the question, why are you running for office at this time and what uniquely qualifies you for this seat? Dr. Johnson?
Got it. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, sir.
Okay,
Thank
so for me, what uniquely qualifies me is that you have to have a vision for the state and also the district. Because anytime as a state senator, you make decisions, it reflects to the rest of the state. So for me, looking at things like climate change, looking at adding financial literacy to the core curriculum, looking at legalizing cannabis, looking at infrastructure, and also supporting Nikema Williams with a lot of the voter programs that she's doing. So you have to have a place where we can go and understand how we get there and create a vision. And I haven't quite seen that collective vision for the state as currently. So that's why I'm running for this.
All righty, Dr. Johnson. Linda Pritchett, why are you running and what uniquely qualifies you for this seat?
Thank you for your question. One thing that out of the few things that uniquely qualifies me is as a certified paralegal that has worked in the legal field over the last 15 years, I see how laws hurt people. I see how laws that people don't even understand how it affects people to their detriment. I serve as a mentor to Next Level Boys Academy, a pretrial diversion program that helps young boys deal with the issues that they find themselves in navigating through the criminal justice system. I also feel that I am relatable. I have previously stated that I am in the community, that I advocate for issues that are relevant to the people in our community. And the people that I've talked to, they have said that they want to see someone that they can contact, someone that's transparent, someone that is accessible to them. And I've always remained accessible and visible in my community. So I think that that's a unique quality that we currently do not have in my district. Thank you. Looks like we've lost our host temporarily.
Hello.
Yes, it appears we have lost our moderator.
Oh.
LaShondra, you want to call her and find out if she, all right.
Yes, I can do that, but I know Elise asked the questions if she wants to ask the next
Yeah,
question.
I can ask.
Okay.
Yeah, I can ask the next question. This question goes to the current incumbent, Senator James and Senator Williams. We'll start with Senator Williams. What have been your greatest accomplishments as a senator? What more do you hope to accomplish? And what will you focus on in the first 6 months of this next term, should you be reelected?
Thank you for the question. My greatest accomplishment so far in 2 years serving at the legislature is in my very first session getting a HBCU study committee passed, we have the most HBCUs in the state of Georgia than any other state in the country. As a graduate of an HBCU, my parents are both graduates of Talladega College, as am I. My grandparents are also graduates of Talladega College. HBCUs are critical to the success of our future and future leaders. So getting that passed and being able to chair that committee in my very first session as a legislator was a huge accomplishment. The things that I hope to accomplish, number one, I'm going to continue to working after I win my primary on June 9th and get more Democrats elected on the November ballot so that we can have a majority in the House of Representatives in Georgia and we can move forward with a fair and transparent redistricting process. In order to get to the core issues that we all believe in, we have to make sure that voting is accessible and fair for all, and that starts with the redistricting process that I'm going to be leading on when we go back to session in January.
Thank you. Senator James, same question for you. What have been your greatest accomplishments as a senator? What more do you hope to accomplish? And what will you focus on in the first 6 months of this next term, should you be reelected?
Thank you very much for the question. I know that I have worked and championed many causes and passed over 400 pieces of legislation, probably more than anybody in the history of the legislature, and during the 2 tenures that I've had. So I'm very proud of the fact that I helped to change the driving safety laws when I lost my son to a drunk driver my first year in the legislature. We changed the DUI laws with Mothers Against Drunk Driving and many other great groups. I also helped to champion some voting right bills, and we had to fight very hard for them. And including recently when I also had another bill for absentee ballots that they took them and put them in their policies because we did not have time to pass these things. My, I guess, greatest accomplishment that I consider is passing the bill on autism to make sure that insurance companies have to screen children for autism and for dyslexia because they were not paying for it at first. And so with Casey Cagle, our former lieutenant governor, we partnered and we passed this. And I work with Autism Speaks right now in working for that. Also, the current governor put me on the mental health task force for Georgia. And I am on the subcommittee for adolescents behavior. And that includes all those special education children who are suffering right now during this pandemic. All students have to learn online, have to do their work online, but these children need special therapy, they need special treatment, and that's not available in any of the 159 counties that we have. So I want to change that.
Thank you. Thank you,
You're
Senator
welcome.
James.
You're welcome.
This next question is for Ms. Pritchett. Mrs. Pritchett, you've run for several different seats in the last few years. What have you learned about your community from those races, and how has that informed the way you're approaching this race?
What I learned about my community is that my community wants someone that will work very hard for them, someone that is transparent, someone that's accessible to them. And my community has shown me a lot of support. That's why I've continued to run. I really don't know of any other way to be elected other than running. So although, people have brought that up, it goes to show how committed I am to my community. And during the times that I have run, I have remained consistent. I have done everything that I have said that I would do. And so the only difference between what I do and an elected official or a state senator is that I cannot pass legislation. But I'm very glad to say that I have worked with State Representative Sandra Scott, and we currently have a study committee bill to decriminalize driving, the effects of the law on driving that makes it a criminal penalty. So basically, if a state legislator does not pass any legislation, there is simply no difference than them and myself, other than I believe that I'm very and more committed to what I do in my community. And I've gotten those results, tangible results. That's why people keep voting for me. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you, Mrs. Pritchett. This next question is for every candidate, and we'll start with candidate Ashley. Here's the question. Many believe that the numerous school vouchering bills proposed over the last few years were nothing more than bold attempts to take public tax dollars and funnel them into the private sector, and that they will ultimately bankrupt public school systems in the metro Atlanta area. Are you for or against school vouchering, and under what conditions?
I am totally against school vouchers, and I don't support them under any condition. I am a strong supporter of public education because our state has a constitutional obligation to provide adequate education for its students. And when you do not provide that institution with the resources that it needs, it weakens the system. With our voucher system, you have, when you look at private colleges, private schooling, that costs between $30,000 and $40,000. To get a $6,000 voucher to someone who can already afford it, that becomes a discount to them. But for the parents or the students that can't afford that private school, and they may go there and struggle with it for a while, that's $6,000 that could have gone to strengthen public education. So no, I do not support the voucher system under any circumstance.
Thank you. Dr. Johnson? Dr. Johnson, I believe you're on
Thank you for
mute.
the question. I do not support school vouchers sending public dollars into private entities. I've never supported that. I think our public school system does work. We can modernize it as well too, add more courses that relate to kids' lives, but I do not support that, no.
Thank you. Senator James?
I do not support vouchers either. My mother and father are both retired from Atlanta Public Schools after more than 45 years each. I worked there 11 years. Education has been the center, the heart, and the core of my being. And no, I voted against all of the bills that came up. This year, a scholarship bill came up, and I did vote on that because I'm on the mental health commission, and the kids, they were adding something to a bill that had been there for 10 years to add autism and dyslexia, which were not on there. And so those two things I did vote on, that one bill. And it's not a voucher, it's a scholarship bill.
Thank you, Senator James.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Pritchett?
I believe that public schools should be fully funded. I think that education is really the key to making sure that our children grow up with opportunities. And what I really have a problem with is the disparity in the schools in North Fulton versus South Fulton. I believe that the children below I-20 should be able to have the same resources, the same type of schools, the same type of quality education. And if we focused on making sure that we bought tax dollars and that we reinforce our education system in this side of I-20, that there wouldn't be a need for vouchers. People wouldn't want to leave their communities to go to different areas where they think they have better schools. We have to take our education a little bit more, not a little bit, a whole lot more seriously. And we have to make sure that when our children are in school, that they are safe, because there are problems in the schools in my area with gang activity and children that live in poverty that cannot even concentrate when they're in class. So I'm very disappointed that these issues have not been resolved in the time that I've been living here in Georgia.
Thank you, Mrs. Pritchett. Senator Williams?
Thank you for the question. As a former public school educator in Fulton County and as almost a rising kindergartner for Atlanta Public Schools, I will never vote for or support any voucher or scholarship bill that would take money away from our public schools and our public school teachers. That's why I've been endorsed by the Georgia Association of Educators, and that's why I've been endorsed by the Atlanta North Georgia Labor Council, because I stand on the side of working families who send their kids to our public schools every day. Every child deserves the opportunity to thrive and not just survive. And we cannot do that unless we're completely funding schools. And that means not taking funding away to divert it to private resources.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Williams. This next question is for Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson, what appointed or elected experience do you have at the local, county, or state level? Specifically, what prior government experiences have prepared you for the role of state senator? If none, why choose to start your political career at this level?
Okay, that's a great question. So let me start by this. So I actually sat on the Fulton County Zoning Board for the last 6 years. So a lot of the things that came into South Fulton, I was either able to create or help bring in, or to make sure that we didn't want certain businesses. With that, I'm actually sitting on the education board. So I understand education at the Main Street Academy. So a lot of the things that we do is we try to instill in our students that greatness, that, making sure that they become the best person that they are. I've actually served on Georgia Equality Board, which fights for civil rights for marginalized peoples in the state of Georgia. So a lot of that, so I've liaisoned with state senators, with governors, even with whenever we were creating the city of South Fulton. That was a lot of lobbying, that was a lot of legislation, that was a lot of time under the state capitol. And so even now, I've always lobbied for education interests. So for me, this is a natural fit and a natural flow, because I wanted to have Georgia have a larger vision when it comes to education, when it comes to climate change, when it comes to infrastructure. So I think it's time to help move us forward. So that's why I chose to run.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. This next question is for all candidates. What elements of the City of South Fulton City Charter are you in favor of changing, and why? What other city charters have you reviewed and or recommended changing? And we'll start with Senator Williams.
Thank you for the question. What elements of the city charter am I looking into changing? Just this current legislative session, which the legislation is not finalized, but I have worked with leaders in the city of South Fulton around changing the way that the law department is set up, or the city attorney is set up for the city of South Fulton. I have reviewed the city of East Point's charter, where they have a full-time attorney that represents their city and not just consulting. I've also reviewed the city of Atlanta's charter and how their city law department is set up. And so for those reasons, one of the issues that I have looked to change and I'm supporting is changing the structure and the setup of the city's law department.
Thank you. Mrs. Pritchett?
Well, this legislative session, I noticed that there was legislation that was introduced to change the charter in favor giving certain powers to give certain strong mayor powers to our mayor, and change elements of our charter that would diminish the autonomy that the city has. I believe that as a brand new city, that we should allow the city to have home rule. We should, as leaders, help and support our council members and mayor and citizens to work together harmoniously, instead of undermining them with legislation that would take one side or the other. So I am not in favor of changing the charter until such time that the city has come into its own being, and the actual council members can figure out how to work well together. And to be honest, most of the time they vote with each other than they do, apart. So I think that our charter may have some tweaking to do, but I think that we just are suffering growing pains, and that's natural for a new city. And I have reviewed the charter for the city of Roswell, for the city of Sandy Spring, and I think that at some point we will grow into changing our charter. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Mrs. Ashley, same question. What elements of the City of South Fulton's city charter are you in favor of changing and why? What other city charters have you reviewed and or recommended changing?
I had an opportunity to read the legislation proposed by Representative Bruce and Representative Sizemore, and I've also read articles regarding the city's concern with the proposed changes. And while I do agree that changes are needed to provide additional checks and balances, however, I'm not privy to all of the information. And so I would not like to speculate on what changes should occur and what changes should not occur. But as your senator, I could assure you that I will bring all parties to the table, because it's all about perspective. If you are a council person and your powers are being limited, then you have a different perspective than if you are the mayor or if you're going to be the city manager. So it's about perspective. In order for me to make an intelligent decision, one that will benefit the entire city, I would have to have be privy to all the information. I've not reviewed any other city's charter, because no other city's charter is of greater importance to me than the one here in the city of South Fulton, where I live, love, and work.
Thank you. I see that our moderator has returned, so I'll turn the reins back over to Dr. Boynton.
Hello, everyone. I have returned. Have you ever heard of the term remote update? Well, I had not either until just about 5, 6, 7 minutes ago. And thanks to everyone for all the text messages that flooded back in, but my entire system went down and the remote unit is now back up as we work from home during this time. Everyone, we will now continue to talk about the city of South Fulton, and let's talk with State Senator Donzella James. Hello again.
Hello again.
Hello again. The city of South Fulton recently celebrated its 4th year.
Third.
During that 3rd year?
Yeah.
Okay. So
We're
going to get to the 4th. Yeah, soon will be a 4th time or flying by.
Oh yeah, 4th, 5th, 6th.
Yeah, indeed. During that time, Senator James, what have you done to support solving environmental hazards in the city of South Fulton, such as the now 20 months active landfill fire and the multiple sewer water treatment system breaches?
Well, environment is, I guess, one of my priorities. And as the author of Zero Waste by 2020, we looked at not only landfills and recycling, reducing, and composting, but we looked at air quality, water quality, etc. So I have been very active in the ongoing fire. I've sat with our governor on 2 occasions to try to find these people who are responsible for that. And as far as the water conditions are concerned, I'm even concerned about the birds falling out of the sky that a lot of people are not even talking about right now. But we have a real problem in the state of Georgia, and it's not as well. The main reason that I ran for office is that when I bought my house in Cliftondale, I smelled this stench one day when it was raining and found out we had the largest landfill in the whole state of Georgia. And now it's an amphitheater and it's a place for fire and police to train and everything, because we shut it down. And that's what I continue to do. So the environment is very important. I want a safe, healthy, and clean environment. I thought you were gonna ask me about what to do about the city of South Fulton. You know, I was on the transition committee, as well as for 10 years, I helped to keep that dream alive, because we tried and tried for years to get the city of South Fulton. It didn't just start in somebody's living room. we worked and worked. And then the only thing they took out of it first was Chattahoochee Hills, and they passed that portion of it. But when I got back to the legislature, we continued to work. So I'm doing everything environmentally for this district because I don't just represent, but I live here. And I
Thank you.
own
Thank you,
property
Senator
here.
James.
Thank you
very much. Thank you. To Dr. Johnson, same question, and I will repeat it. City of South Fulton recently celebrated its 3rd year. During that time, what have you done to support solving environmental hazards in the city of South Fulton, such as the now 20 months active landfill fire and the multiple sewer water treatment system breaches?
Okay, so a lot of, as far as the landfill. So basically, you know, I've been corralling citizens as well too, to kind of figure out what happened. But it seems like we don't talk about the before it got there, because if we had a landfill and we've had environmental, as you say, Donzella, you said you've been working on the environmental piece for this number of years, then why was it that the landfill got to be the problem that it has been if it's been, you know, 20 years since this thing has been happening? So it didn't necessarily happen overnight. So with those policies, we have to start encouraging recycling. Like I get a recycling bill. I'm paying to recycle. I don't think that that's right. It shouldn't be the norm to have to pay for recycling. That is something that we should be automatically doing so that we don't have to worry about those landfills that catch on fire. So I think a lot of this is to be a little more proactive before we get to these major issues. And that's some of the things that, you know, we have to address in climate change. We have to start encouraging people to do less when it comes to destroying the environment, such as carbon footprinting. We have to get a hold of these things before they become issues. And I think for me, you know, talking about that piece to it, it makes more sense for it. So, and those are some of the things I've been doing. It's just right now we have to deal with the actionary. How do we get to it before it happens? So we have to start asking those questions. So.
Thank you very much, Dr. Johnson. To you, State Senator Nikema Williams, City of South Fulton recently celebrated the 3rd year. During that time, what have you done to support solving environmental hazards in the city of South Fulton, such as the now 20 months active landfill fire and the multiple sewer water treatment system breaches?
I think this is the perfect example, Maria, of how we can't just look within the confines of district lines. One of the pieces of legislation that I introduced was lead testing of water in our schools. I have a 4-year-old. You'll hear me talk about my Carter cakes all the time because the elections are about the future. And I know that everything that we do to set up for his future is going to impact everybody else. And so I introduced legislation to make sure to require that lead testing of the water in our schools was done across the board. This legislation is still being held up in committee, but I'm going to continue to push and work for that because as we see environmental impacts that are happening in one district, they definitely, although the landfill is not in Senate District 39, we definitely will see the impacts not only in that district, but across the board. And so things like making sure that our water is tested so the smallest of us and our children in schools are not impacted for generations to come because of contaminated water in our schools. So I would please, if you're listening, reach out to the Senate Health and Human Services Committee so that we can continue to push this legislation forward to protect our children in our schools.
Thank you, Senator Williams. Ms. Ashley, same question to you. City of South Fulton recently celebrated its 3rd year. And during that time, what have you done to support solving environmental hazards in the city of South Fulton, such as the now 20 months active landfill fire and the multiple sewer water treatment system breaches?
Well, because I am a citizen first and a homeowner, I've not been in a position of leadership where I could directly impact the laws that would govern those issues that you mentioned. But what I will bring to remembrance of those of you who have been long-term residents of the city, when I moved here, we had trees were everywhere. Because of the flight of the airplanes and the fuel jet that it dropped, the trees absorbed some of that. How we plan our cities has everything to do with our environment. as your next state senator, I am in total agreement of a green economy. We are blessed in this district, not just in South Fulton, all over District 35 to have land. Not all districts have that land, and we have to become good stewards of that land as opposed to putting development on every piece of available land. We have to look at how to grow our economy differently, where we grow whole foods that protect not only our citizens, but our environment. And so as your next state senator, again, I support a green economy that is aimed at making issues of reducing environmental risks and ecological scarcities. We have to do that for our future generation. And it starts with how we plan our cities.
Thank you very much. Same question to you, Ms. Pritchett. City of South Fulton recently celebrated year number 3. And during that time, what have you done to support solving environmental hazards in the city of South Fulton, such as the now 20 months active landfill fire and the multiple sewer water treatment system breaches, Ms. Pritchett?
When this became a really big issue for the city, I was actually a legislative specialist in the city of South Fulton in District 5. And that issue was taking place in District 4, Naima Gilliard's district. And so Councilwoman Gilliard came to me because her constituents were really upset about the smoke and about the ash and the air quality. And so I helped Councilwoman Gilliard connect with someone to put together an informational video so that she can address her constituents. I believe in keeping people informed, as I spoke about my newsletter, and I also helped Councilwoman Gilliard at that time to put together a newsletter to be able to talk to her constituents. And I also connected her with Senator James, and they had a town hall meeting that was held at the Cedar Grove subdivision. And at that time, because I was an employee of the city, I could not actively be involved, but I sent my husband, who is a former state legislator from Mississippi, and he also assisted Councilwoman Gilliard with that issue. So we worked behind the scenes to make sure that she had the right information. We spoke to the fire chief in our city as well, making sure that everyone that had a seat at the table or had some responsibility to the citizens, that they were all on the same page.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pritchett, for that answer. Thanks to each one of you for that answer. I think we all know that the air that we breathe, where we live, that matters because our lungs matter. And we don't want our residents to be ill or to become ill from what we breathe. Moving on now. What is your position on the issue of bathroom access for transgenders? What measures would you take to make certain the safety of traditionally recognized women and children is not compromised in any effort to create more comfortable spaces for transgenders? And with that question, we'll begin with you, State Senator Nikema Williams.
Thank you, Maria. I want to push back on that question a little bit, and I don't know the basis of it because it's hard to tell in a forum setting like this, but to say traditional women or trans women are not, that trans women are not women in the frame of this question is not my belief system. And so I want to push back on that. I think that we all should have the ability to use the restroom of the gender that we identify with, and that has nothing to do with the way that we're born. I know that I work across communities across the state to make sure that we're all able to live our best lives. I like to use the motto out loud and on purpose, and that transcends gender lines as well. And I think that we as a community need to make sure that we're making sure that we elevate the voices of those most marginalized. And I will always stand up to make sure that everybody is uplifted. That's why I've been endorsed by organizations like Georgia Equality and Georgia Stonewall Democrats, because I'm not sitting here making differences between people and the way that they identify gender-wise. So I kind of don't, the notion of that question makes you perceive that trans women are not women, and that's just not true.
Well, I'm certain that as the questions were being formulated, that was not the intention, State Senator Williams. Certainly. To Ms. Linda Pritchett, your answer to the question, what is your position on the issue of bathroom access for transgenders?
Going to the bathroom is something that's very private. And when you use the bathroom visiting someone's home, everyone uses the same bathroom. So I think that we're in a place that we have to stop pitting people against each other and instead talk about what real concerns you actually have with that issue. Parents with young children feel a certain way about little girls and little boys using the same bathroom. But these are all things that I don't think that it's an issue that should be that great of a deal. I think that people should use the bathroom, restrooms where they feel comfortable. And if they don't, then these are issues that people have to address and they have to voice those issues. So I do agree with Senator Williams in terms of a transgender person, a transgender woman is as much as a woman as I am, you know, and it's not to alienate people on their, how they prefer to use the restroom. I just don't think that's an issue that people should make such a big deal out of.
I understand that. And well, what measures would you take to make certain that the safety of anyone using the bathrooms, that their safety is not compromised in any effort to create more comfortable spaces for transgenders?
I mean, the issues, people have to voice whatever concerns they really have about it. If it has to do with young people using bathrooms, parents have concerns and they'd have to voice what those concerns are. But for me, as a grown woman of someone of age, I don't have a problem. To answer your question, looking at legislation to make sure that anyone that wants to use a restroom can, that people are not discriminated against in which restroom they want to use, that there is no discrimination, and that would be in the form of a civil rights bill.
Dr. Johnson, we go to you, same question. What is your position on the issues, Doctor, of bathroom access for transgenders? And what measures would you take to make sure or make certain that the safety of everyone is not compromised in any effort to create a more comfortable space for others?
Well, I kind of share the same sentiment with Senator Williams, with the question being problematic, because trans women are women. Let's just start there. The issue that I have with this particular question, or even the fact that we're having this conversation, is that we haven't seen anyone being accosted by trans people in bathrooms. And this conversation came about as a conservative measure to continue to pit people against each other. Let's just be very clear about that. And really, if you think about it, we travel together on planes, we travel together in different areas where things are unisex. It's never been an issue before this, and we've allowed it to become such an issue, unfortunately. But I've always supported trans rights, with my work with Georgia Equality. This is one of the bills that we've kept out of the state, is this transgender bill, or the transgender bathroom bill, because it came from a place of, let's create a problem so we can create a solution. That's where this came from. So I would always be, very paramount in protecting people's rights, especially the most marginalized of us. And they are, they're dying in large numbers and no one cares. So we have to start thinking about our citizens like they value. And I think this bill, or even a notion of a bill, just doesn't make sense for business continuity. It doesn't make sense from a social perspective either.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. And before we move on to the chat questions, we are going to allow State Senator Donzella James and Ms. Ashley to both answer the question. State Senator James, your answer, please, to the question of bathroom use when it comes to transgenders. What is your position on the issue, Senator, of bathroom access for transgenders, and what measures would you take to make certain the safety of others is not compromised? State Senator James.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay.
Yes, now we can.
Thank you. As first of all, I thought I was going to get a rebuttal about the landfill, since I was targeted and told and called Donzella and blamed for the fire. But anyway, I'll answer this question first. First of all, as a world traveler, I've gone to so many different countries that I don't see anything but unisex bathrooms. I don't see any problems that they have there. So when the issue came before the legislature, it was not adults that they were talking about. It was children in the schools. And I did get many letters and calls from parents who had a problem with their child going to the bathroom with a boy or a girl, or they didn't know which one. But it did not materialize. It did not become an issue. Somebody was trying to make it an issue. And so right now, I think that people are more comfortable. I did have a public hearing and only 4 people showed up to talk about it. So I don't think it's on the mind and hearts of those parents who took the time to write me or call me. And again, I think I've always been for transgender and all other sex, because if you're an adult and you are who you are, then you are who you are. And I approve and support.
Senator James, thank you very much. Same question to you, Ms. Ashley. What is your position on the issue of bathroom access for transgenders, and what measures would you take to make certain the safety of everyone is not compromised in the effort to create more comfortable spaces for others? Ms. Ashley?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
You can hear
We
me
see
now?
you as well.
Okay. When it comes to issues, whether it's transgenders or lesbians or LGBTQ, I look at people from a human standpoint first, because we all have rights. But as it pertains to bathrooms, I take the position that we should provide more gender neutral bathrooms so that people can become comfortable. If a woman finds herself uncomfortable in that situation, then we should have women only bathrooms. However, if there are those who are more comfortable with having transgenders coming to, then do that. But I think a reasonable solution is that in new buildings or new constructions, that it should be required that you have gender neutral bathrooms, and to be respectful of everybody's rights.
All righty, thank you very, very much, Ms. Ashley. For this next question, we're going to go to the chat line, and we will begin with Ms. Pritchett. The question, you know, I'm sitting here at home. I've been at home now for, I don't know how many months now, and going out with each new day, it becomes a little bit more scary, amazingly, though they're opening up things and things of that nature. We don't know what's going to happen, who's going to get sick next. Will our families be affected? Will we be affected? Will just sitting here at home now make me be affected? So given the crisis of COVID-19, it's going to take a huge effort and years of hard work, especially as a minority senator, to get us out of this mess. So what do you believe is needed in a senator in COVID-19 times, Ms. Pritchett?
I believe, you know, I'd like to thank a lot of the essential personnel. I fall into that category. I've been working throughout this whole time of the COVID virus, and it has been very challenging. I appreciate the nurses, the first responders, the law enforcement personnel that have put themselves at risk. And I also deeply and greatly appreciate the people that work at the grocery store, that they're not making much and they have exposed themselves so much. So we have to look at labor issues. We have to look at making sure that businesses that do open, that they do follow CDC recommendations as far and OSHA safety standards, as far as making sure that these facilities are safe, that they're sanitized, and that if people are working under conditions that they're not comfortable, that they're not just discarded. I think that we have to learn how to adjust. A lot of people in my industry, in the legal field, they have adjusted. They're doing, videos on Zoom. People are working remotely. We're really going to have to look at how other people feel and what other people are facing, not just what we're comfortable and used to. And it will take legislation to make sure that we hold these businesses that really monopolize on people's need to feed their families and put them at risk.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchett. Thank you, Ms. Pritchett. Ms. Ashley, I'm going to go to you now. Given the rise of COVID-19, it's going to take a huge effort and years of hard work, especially as a minority senator, to get us out of this mess. What do you believe is needed in a senator in COVID-19 times, Ms. Ashley?
Well, it requires a deeper look into just what has happened in the last couple of months. This pandemic has shined the light on systems that were already weakened in our state. And I know the natural response is to just go in and make cuts, but this is a fine opportunity to hit a restart button and look at how we fund all of our foundational systems in the state of Georgia. It's a natural resource to say, well, we're going to cut schools. The school funding was already weakened. And so we have a perfect opportunity as senators to really look at how we do business in Georgia and how we do business in all our programs, and really look at how do we prevent something like this from happening again? Because it has been said that it's going to be worse in the fall, but we've not adequately dealt with it now. We first need to start with factual information being disseminated from our state leaders. People don't know what to do. And so unless you have all the facts on the table, you cannot make decisions that are rooted and grounded in integrity, so that our programs and our systems are working as they should be.
Thank you, Ms. Ashley. Dr. Johnson, question to you, same question. Given the crisis of COVID-19, it's going to take a huge effort, years of hard work, especially as a minority senator, to get us out of this mess. So what would you do, Dr. Johnson? What do you believe is needed in a senator in COVID-19 times?
Thanks for that question. One of the big things that we need is creativity. We have to start looking at different avenues of how do we create value and tax dollars in our state. One of those ways is expanding Medicaid. We're going to have a hard push for expanding Medicaid if we want to protect the rural areas. So when I say creativity, now we got to creatively work with Republicans to get that done. Flexibility. We have to figure out what is going to be our new norm. What is going to be the new medium? Because all those old ways may not be effective anymore. So we have to figure out where we're going and how do we get there. You have to have the stamina to get through this, because there's going to be a lot of moving parts in the state. There's going to be a lot of moving parts when it comes to how we're learning about the virus. We don't know anything fully about the virus yet. So we're still in that learning phase. So you have to have a lot of stamina to get through to this, to get to the other side of COVID. We don't know what that's going to look like. You also have to have, be able to listen and be able to listen to others. I think a lot of the leaders now have not listened to the experts, because now we're in this whole anti-intellectualism movement. So people have to be able to know when to listen to others. And I think that's something that we've been lacking, and that's something that's going to be required for the next state senator. So yes, those are my answers.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. State Senator Nikema Williams, to you. It's a crisis, COVID-19, going to take a huge effort, years of hard work, especially as a minority senator, to get us out of this mess. For someone newly coming in, what do you believe is needed in a senator in COVID-19 times?
Maria, we view life through our lived experiences, and having just survived COVID-19, I spent 3 weeks recuperating from this virus. And so I know how brutal it is. And I know how impactful leadership is for setting the tone on what we should be doing. Along with 30 plus other local elected officials in the South Fulton area, we founded a coalition of regional elected officials to encourage people to continue to stay home when possible, and when they go out in public, to make sure that you're wearing face masks, keeping your social distances. We are currently working at the Camp Creek Marketplace with the leadership there to get masks donated for people that are going out to shop and going out to work, because we know that it's not everyone's reality to be able to stay home. I just penned an op-ed just this weekend. It was in the Sunday Atlanta Journal-Constitution about domestic workers. I have a 4-year-old, and right now, even if I had to go back to work in person, I don't have childcare for my son, because domestic workers who are on the front line of this crisis don't have the ability to work from home. So what we need is someone who can see life through the lived experiences of our constituents, and make sure that as we look at the $4.5 billion that we're going to have to cut from this budget, that we're looking at ways that are not going to impact those most marginalized in our community and in our state. When I look at this budget, we can't cut our way out of $4.5 billion. We're going to have to look at revenue increases. And so I'm looking at things like a tobacco tax increase, so that we can make sure that as we're looking at our schools, as we're looking at our healthcare, that we're not cutting the most marginalized portions of our budget that are going to support all of us.
Thank you, State Senator Nikema Williams. How about it, State Senator Donzella James? Senator Williams talks about revenue increases, things of that nature. What do you believe is going to take to dig us out of this COVID-19 mess?
Well, I have been on the front line since day one. I've been working to secure funding for families and businesses that's most affected by the COVID-19. I did self-quarantine myself and isolated myself as well. I've worked to get with the hotline, the COVID-19 hotline that we have. I think it's 844-442-2681. And I continue to put out newsletters and e-letters letting everyone know of the real information about this dread disease that nobody ever expected. I'm also, besides the precautions that my colleague just mentioned, I also tried to encourage all workers to stay home if they're sick. And I wanted to promote frequent and thorough hand washing and sanitizing. Encourage others to cover their cough and their sneezes, not just cover their mouth when they go out and their nose, but if they're sneezing, they need to keep it on always. And I wanted to provide customers and the public with tissues and trash receptacles. And when you use gloves or these tissues, throw them away immediately in these secure places. We wanted to discourage the workers from using other employees' telephones and desks, and the list goes on.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Senator James. Senator Nikema Williams, just want to take a second, if I might ask you, how are you doing after your bout with COVID-19?
I'm back to 100%, Maria. I still haven't ventured back out to going back out in the community in large spaces, but I'm back to 100% and back on the front lines representing my constituents. Thank you so much for asking. It was brutal for a while.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. It hit my family. My uncle had it, so everyone is going to take a while. Next question. We did cover everyone in that question. I believe we did. Yes, we did. Next question. What are your thoughts on term limits for state senators and representatives in the state of Georgia? Dr. Kelly Johnson, we'll begin with you on that one.
Hey, so thanks for that question. I actually support term limits. And the reason why I say that is because this is something that allows freshness, that allows new life into areas that we may have not have looked at before. I understand that people would like to make this career, et cetera, but you can do that by going up levels. For me, this would also allow those future generations to sort of create a path, if you will, because for me it's about training up the folks behind me. It's not about me. this run is not about me, it's about the people behind me. And so I want to make sure that they are still breathing their fresh life, their vision into Georgia as we move to the future. And I think that's one way that you can do that is to create term limits.
Well, you support it. So the second part of the question is, how many years do you think is reasonable, sir?
Anywhere from 10 to maybe 12, because that's where you can kind of, allow a generation, essentially. It's more like a generational break almost. So I think for me, it'd be 10 to 12 years.
Okay. Next, the same question to you, Ms. Ashley. What are your thoughts on term limits for state senators and representatives in the state of Georgia? And if you are in support of it, how many years do you think is reasonable, Ms. Ashley?
Yes, I wholeheartedly support term limits because it could encourage politicians to have courage. One of the primary reasons why legislation happens at a snail's pace is because most of our elected officials, not all, but too many of them start concerning themselves about their next election. And so I support term limits for that reason, but it would also limit the potential for corruption in government. And to having term limits in place could encourage people to vote more often, because when you live in a district where you know what the outcome of the vote will be before you cast a ballot, then any opposition is largely symbolic. And so our people deserve more than that. And I think that term limits would also bring out new ideas. And so as I reach forward to receive the torch to serve, it's also a torch that I have to go backwards and to bring those future generation of senators who are waiting to serve as well.
Thank you, Ms. Ashley. Term limits, Ms. Pritchett, do you support them? And if so, for how many years do you feel is reasonable?
I actually don't agree with term limits for state senator. And here's my rationale. The state of California does have term limits. And so what happens is that people start at school board, then that's a springboard for city council, which is a springboard for state rep, then state senate, then district attorney. And so it's a revolving door of people, just the same people occupying one seat after another. And so I don't think that that genuinely serves the best interests of the people. I do believe that we have to do better as voters in being more civically engaged with the people who represent us. And when we have good people that can introduce good legislation and actually pass legislation, that's someone that we need to keep. But in saying that, I do support federal term limits because I do believe that after about 30 years, you're basically creating a block where no one can come in and pretty much do the work of the people. People are pretty much stuck with whatever the majority decides. So I do not agree with term limits for state senator seats or state seats in the General Assembly.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Pritchett. State Senator Nakima Williams, term limits, do you agree with them? And if you do, what's reasonable in terms of time, years?
I actually don't agree with term limits simply because having been on one side of the aisle at the Capitol while serving as a lobbyist and an advocate, I know that there are often times, even now without adequate staff, that the lobbyists in the hallway know much more about the legislation than the people sitting in the chairs doing the voting. And so term limits, as I've seen with my colleagues in other states like Florida and Ohio, what happens is you have a class of lobbyists that actually are running the things that are happening at the Capitol. Without term limits at the state Capitol, we have the opportunity to become experts on the issues and the legislative process and continue to move things forward, where it takes a long time to move public policy forward in a very meaningful way. And so I don't agree with term limits on the state or federal level. I think our term limits come every 2 years, just like Ms. Pritchett has the right to run against me and the voters get to decide. That's how we determine if someone has been in office too long, by the people being able to step up and use their voice and vote every 2 years.
Thank you, Senator Williams. State Senator Donzella James, same question to you. Term limits for senators and representatives in the Georgia legislature, do you support them? If you do, what's reasonable in terms of the number of years?
Thank you very much for the question. We have the President of the United States has term limits. Our governors have term limits, but many other states have term limits on House and Senate members. And I don't see where that is working well in those particular states, because they get brand new people who don't know anything about it. And by the time they learn, their term is over. I feel that the state of Georgia, along with about 30 something more states, don't have term limits, because they limit your term by your performance in the position, by the way you're working as a legislator in the House or the Senate. And I agree with Ms. Pritchett, who said if a person is passing legislation, she's listening, she or he is listening to the people and doing the job, and also has the contacts, and because you have to have contacts on both sides. You won't vote without making coalitions. So if a person is doing all of that and doing an excellent job, then the people will show the term limit at the polls and either keep them or get rid of them according to their performance and whether they take this job seriously or not. So no, I don't agree with term limits on a state level.
Thanks to each of you for your answers on those questions. Next question, and we will begin with Ms. Ashley on this particular question. What will you do to make sure that public schools are adequately funded? Also, how will you support the public schools in your district? Ms. Ashley.
Thank you for that question. I wholeheartedly, as I said, support public schools. I support fully funding our public schools and supporting our teachers and providing them the resources they need in order to educate our children. We have gotten away from the true meaning of an education, which is to provide children those things that they need to earn a living and to become productive citizens in our state and in our society. And so we have to get back to making certain that we have choices for children, because not all children are college bound. I support vocational education that gives children the opportunity to explore their natural gifts, because we need all kinds of persons in our society. And so I fully support fully funding our public education. I support significant improvements in salaries to our teachers and enhancing educational programs. And I also support our educators, because they have a really difficult task ahead when educating our children and not having the resources they need to be successful. And as it pertains to our schools in District 35, I am a believer that in order to help any person, you have to have all people at the table. I support, as a legislator, you just only have one perspective, and I support bringing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Ashley. To you, State Senator Nikema Williams, same question. What would you do to make sure that schools are adequately funded, and what would you do to support the public schools in your district?
So during the 2018 legislative session was the first time that the state of Georgia adequately funded the quality-based education formula for public schools. But what we didn't do was raise that formula to come up to current times. So number one, we need to look at the QBE formula and how do we adjust that for 2020 terms. And knowing that we're looking at a significant cut across the board, 14% for every state agency, that is going to be critical for our schools. I just had a call this past week with the state school, with this superintendent for Fulton County Schools about the impacts that this budget is going to have on the school system here. So one of the things that we're looking at is making sure that we don't add additional millage rate breaks on top of the budget cuts that we're going to face on the state level, because that's going to be critical for our public schools to continue to function. Also looking at the CARES funding that is coming in on the state level from the federal level. I have a town hall coming up this Wednesday with Congresswoman Lucy McBeth, Congressman David Scott, and Congressman Hank Johnson to talk about that funding and how we can make sure that that funding is sent directly to public schools here in the state of Georgia, specifically Fulton County and Atlanta Public Schools in my district. So I'm looking at how do we make sure that the revenue based on the shortfalls that we're going to see when we go back into session in June does not have the impact that we're thinking it could have on our state school budgets.
Thank you, Senator Williams. Ms. Pritchett, question to you. What would you do to make sure that the public schools are adequately funded, and how would you support the public schools in your district?
Well, the public schools, many of them in my district or in my community, some of them have been renovated. Some of them are antiquated, out of date. There's a school in particular, S.L. Lewis, which is like over 40 years old, and they have like lead in the water. They have gas that comes out in the school. And for some reason, there's no attention that's drawn or brought to bringing that school up to standard. And so last summer, a cousin of mine was playing a baseball game somewhere in Cobb County. And at that particular middle school, they had a football field, a baseball field, a natatorium. It looked like a college campus. And the reason that they have that is because the people that live in those communities, they do not settle for less. They make sure that they have what they want to see in their communities. And so many times, elected leaders don't listen to the people. And so what I would do is a state senator would have relationships or access to a lot of the corporations, in our state, which we have many of Fortune 500 companies in Georgia. I would facilitate public-private partnerships that we would create better facilities for our children's campuses. We would have career academies. We would create internship opportunities so that when our kids graduate from high school, if they choose not to go to college, they will know how to get a job and that they will have skills and job training.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Pritchett. Thank you very much. State Senator James, when it comes to funding for public schools, what would you do to make sure that they are adequately funded? And what would you do to support the public schools in your district?
Well, number one, as a product of public schools and also as one who went through the school system to earn undergrad, master's, and earn doctorate and 3 honoraries, education is number one. We must continue to fund education to the highest degree. Right now, it's the number one budget item in the state of Georgia, and it always has been, and we want to keep it that way. I know that last year, the QBE, Quality Basic Education Act from way back in the 80s, 70s or 80s, was what they said fully funded, but it was not really fully funded. It was funded to a degree, and that's why we don't know whether it works. It was a wonderful concept on paper, but is it now? With all of the changes that are happening with this cohort going on right now, and people homeschooling and parents becoming teachers for the first time, we're going to need someone to be able to go in who serves on this education committee, as I have for more than 10 years, to go in and do the job and to make sure that this money stays in the budget and listen to every creative idea or what teachers don't want to go to school right now. And if they're forced to go to school, are they going to be fired if they say, no, I don't want to go to school? So, we need to look at so many things with education. I'm ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator James. Thank you very, very much. Thanks to each of you for answering that particular question. We've heard conversations, we've heard it in your answers, the belief that you have to be able to cross the lines, the party lines to get things done. So my next question, and I'd like to thank Joyce Stewart for submitting this question, and thanks to everyone who's submitting questions. Georgia consistently has low rankings with many healthcare issues, such as maternal mortality. What are your plans to work with members of the GOP to improve the access to healthcare for all Georgians? And State Senator Donzella James, we're going to start with you on that one.
Okay, well, I have always worked to expand Medicaid, Medicare, everything, because right now we need all of the help that we can get. Tell me the question again, because I got thrown off. Sorry. So
When
go
it,
ahead.
co- when it comes to low-ranking healthcare issues,
Yes.
we
Oh,
have,
how am I going to work across the aisle?
yes, yeah, how would you actually work across the aisle, say with the GOP, to improve the access to healthcare for all Georgians?
Okay, first of all, I'm doing that already. I'm a Democrat, and I'm a stern Democrat. But I know that we have to work across the lines. I'm the probably I have a core committee that I chair, and it was given to me by the current governor. Before that, the former governor assigned me to another core committee that I have served. And I think there's zero Democrats or House or Black Caucus members from the House on it. And it's 3 of us on the Senate side, but I'm the only one with a core committee. So I'm already sitting in these meetings or listening. And oh, I'm unbought and unbossed. Nobody, I don't sell out or anything, but I listen to what they have to say. And we respect each other. You earn respect. You work with everyone and earn respect. So yes, I work with them. They work with us. But they don't even ask me for crazy things because they know that I'm not going to go along with it. Again, unbought and unbossed. That's how I worked for Shirley Chisholm for 7 years. And that's her book that she authored, Unbought and Unbossed.
Thank you, Senator James. Dr. Johnson, the question is to you. When it comes to healthcare issues, what are your plans to work with members of the GOP or across the party lines to improve the access to healthcare for all Georgians?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Sorry, I didn't get to answer the last one, so hopefully I can come back to that one. But
yeah, I'm going to come back to you on that one. I realized it when we had moved on, but I got you.
Gotcha. So one of the things that we had to do to get cityhood passed is to work with members of the Republican Party. A lot of Republicans, we've kind of created this narrative that all of them are terrible. Most Republicans are actually wanting the same thing. It's just that a lot of times they go about it differently. So this is an opportunity to have to work across party lines, because the only way that we can ensure that we have adequate health care in rural Georgia, which is what this conversation is about, we have to make sure that we can work with them to expand Medicaid. Or look for new service or look for new revenue streams to come into the budget so that it can be fully funded. So there's 2 ways to approach that issue: expanding Medicaid or expanding business revenue into the state of Georgia. So at some point, we have to make sure that I have to think about all of those residents that are in South Georgia that are going without Medicare, especially as we move through this pandemic. I think that is going to be the single most thing that could decimate South Georgia, is a pandemic and not adequate health care. So we have to work, and we have to make Republicans understand that, hey, this is your base. You have a fiduciary responsibility to them to make sure that they're safe, and you're not doing that by keeping them unprotected in those areas. So definitely have worked with Republicans before, and I think I can be able to do so again, getting that done.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. State Senator Nakima Williams, when it comes to healthcare issues, what are your plans to work with members of the GOP to improve the access to healthcare for all Georgians?
Maria, I am the chairwoman of the Democratic Party of Georgia, and so there are a number of differences between me and my Republican colleagues. We've been pushing back and trying to get Medicaid expansion passed just to save lives of everyday Georgians, and because of politics, it just hasn't worked. One of the things that I've learned is I don't have to have ownership of a certain interest or issue to see it moving through. That is the sign of a true leader, not having to have your name attached to something or get the notoriety or credit for something, because if it comes down to helping people, then that's what needs to be done. In this year's budget, one of the things that we're going to have to be looking at is the continued funding that was put in for continuing Medicaid coverage for pregnant women within 1 year of childbirth, because in Georgia, Black women die at rates of third world countries within 1 year of childbirth. That is what we're talking about, to make it plain when we say the maternal mortality crisis in Georgia. So we need to make sure that that funding stays within the budget, and making sure that I know when to step up and when to step back from issues, so that we can continue to get the work done to move things forward, to center those most marginalized in our state.
Thank you very much, State Senator Nakima Williams. Ms. Ashley, same question to you. Healthcare issues, what will you do to cross the party lines to improve the access to healthcare for all Georgians? Ms. Ashley.
I will do what I do every day. I work with the uninsured and I come up with creative ways to provide them insurance. I partnered with our local doctors to provide pro bono services. I have worked with insurance providers that come into my community and provide free healthcare services. I bring to the table what many don't have. I have actual experience working with people for the very laws that we passed. I work with those people who see the effects of those laws not being passed for those who don't have insurance. And so what I bring is what I see every day, not a statistic that I can put a face to the statistics that we talk about. I know personally the effects of maternal health in Georgia because nearly 2 decades ago, after giving birth to my children, I contracted a rare form of what is called bilateral Bell's palsy. And oftentimes people say, you look so serious, but it had total paralysis of my face. But I had health insurance. I had access to a psychologist and all of those things to be able to deal with the depression that comes with that. But many of our Georgia mothers don't have that. So what I bring to the table is that my fight is different. My argument is different. I'm more passionate about it because it's personal to me. And sometimes,
Thank you.
Experience, you can make your point.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ashley. Ms. Pritchett, same question to you. What are your plans to work with members across the aisle to improve the access to healthcare for all Georgians? Ms. Pritchett.
Thank you for the question. The first thing we need to do is we need to expand the access to physical facilities for healthcare. And actually, for the last year, I've been working with a physician group that we actually have been looking at putting a hospital in the city of South Fulton on Camp Creek Parkway, because we know that there is a need for people to have access to healthcare that's close to them. And I'm glad that you also brought up the issue of maternal mortality. I actually attended the study committee meeting a few months ago on maternal mortality. And one of the things that I will point out is that the committee, they have an issue with the statistics. They're only looking at it in terms of Black and white. And I, as a first-generation American born to Cuban immigrants, pointed out that there are no statistics on the maternal mortality of Hispanic women. So we have to just be honest about the reasons why there are disparities in maternal mortality, and it boils down to access to health care and the rampant poverty that people suffer in rural areas. So we have to address it from a perspective of funding, and we need more hospitals, more urgent care clinics, more places where people can receive good health care. Because even with this COVID situation, there were people who had symptoms and could not get tested.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchett. Thank you very, very much. At this time, Dr. Johnson, we're going to allow you to answer the question when it comes to funding for public schools. What will you do to make sure that public schools are adequately funded, Dr. Johnson? Also, how would you support the public schools in your district?
Well, thanks for that question. So the one thing we have to start thinking about is, of course, I said it before, is the revenue side of the state's budget, because that's where we can do the most finagling. So for me, things like legalizing cannabis, expanding Medicaid will allow us more flexibility into our budget. Even thinking about, the casinos and gaming. I mean, right now we're facing a pretty big shortfall. So at some point we have to realize if we're going to keep education fully funded, we're going to have to figure out how do we grow the pie as opposed to trying to take all these different slices. And I think that's something that the conversation hasn't come up yet. And I know that, with policy, some of those things take time because, but it's something that we need to start thinking about today. How I would help my schools is part of that is that I want to provide a free school lunch for all public school children. I mean, we pay for everything else. We pay for the buildings, the books, the teachers, everything else. But why are we not providing free school lunch for kids all across the board, no matter socioeconomic backgrounds? And we could do that if we grow our budget. So, for me, I'm looking more at the growth side and how do we allow the business mix in Georgia to get larger so that we can grow the pie.
All righty. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. So now the time has come. Everyone, I hope that you have heard something that piqued your interest. I hope that you learned something from the candidates this evening. Candidates, it's now time for your closing statements. And of course, with your closing statements, you will be allowed 90 seconds each. 90 seconds each. We will begin with you, Ms. Pritchett.
Okay. So thank you so much. Thank you, Councilwoman Gums, Councilwoman Willis, and Dr. Boynton for putting on this forum so that we can address people and let them know who is on the ballot. I hope that after this forum, that it is obvious to citizens of the District 39 who is truly a candidate of action. I submit to you that in these remaining days, I will be reaching out to as many of you as I possibly can to let you know who I am and to find out what issues are most important to you. In the meantime, you can look up my website, which is www.votethe4linda.com. And I would also encourage you to early vote, which started today. Also to vote by mail. It's still not too late to vote by mail. And also to vote in person safely. Make sure you take PPE with you when you go to vote. And it's been a pleasure to address you this evening. And again, I would like to ask you to vote for Linda Pritchett. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchett. State Senator Nikema Williams, your closing statement, ma'am.
Thank you so much. As a wife, a mother, the first Black woman to chair the Democratic Party of Georgia, and your state senator, this fight is very personal for me. I'll always elevate your voice and make sure that I fight for economic dignity and opportunity for all in our communities. As your state senator, I fight for working families, I fight for voting rights and fair representation for all. I know that elections are about the future, and every day, that's why I fight for every Georgian, no matter their zip code, to have the opportunities to thrive and not just survive. I put my freedom on the line and was arrested, fighting to protect your right to vote and be heard. You deserve a senator that fights for you, and I am that senator. Please join me by learning more at my website, nikemawilliams.com, and vote now or vote early to keep your state senator, Nikema Williams. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Williams. Dr. Johnson, your closing statement, sir.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for that. I'm in this race to basically return value to the community. We are in a situation where 2020 has taught us a lot of hard lessons, especially for South Fulton. So, we've been hit with COVID-19. We have to understand that this is a pandemic that will probably continue to be with us. And so how do we get creative? What do we do now? How do we move forward? So one of the areas of opportunity was, the digital infrastructure. Some kids couldn't log on because they didn't have adequate internet service or high-speed internet. So we have to figure out what are the challenges tomorrow and how do we move towards them? I feel like I'm the most qualified because of my training, the fact that I'm a PhD in public policy, earned, a vet of the United States Navy, nuclear power school trained, and also a community advocate. I've worked in government, I've worked in education, I've worked with boards of arts and entertainment. So I understand the entire scope of South Fulton and what it needs. I'm a Black man from the dirt roads in Mississippi, but I'm here because I want to make sure that Georgia is taking all the opportunities it can to be the best state that it can. We need policies regarding climate change. We need policies regarding investment into infrastructure. Also, we need policies regarding education. We need to make sure that our kids are safe, they are ready to learn, and they keep moving. And that is why I would like to add financial literacy to the curriculum, because our kids need to understand that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Johnson. Ms. Ashley, your closing statement.
Yes, thank you. We have a decision to make, not just in this race, but in races all over this state. Do we choose to sit passively on the sidelines and allow those who are self-seeking and self-serving to continue to hijack our government? Or do we say enough is enough and begin to weed them out of office? Democracy in this country and in this state is under attack. We cannot afford to be about business as usual. We need leadership that will rise to the occasion and be chaplains of the common good. It's simple. The simple is not always easy. The odds are stacked against candidates like me who seek to serve the common good. However, with the power of your vote, together we can set a new standard for public service, leaving a legacy of success for future voters. Now, whether you choose to cast your ballot by mail or go to the polls for early voting, which started today, or if you decide to wait until June 9th, whatever method you choose, just know that a vote for Karen W. Ashley for Senate District 35 is a vote for responsible leadership that values people over politics and common sense over confusion. To learn more about me, I invite you to my website, www.karenwashley.com. And in closing, I will say, you don't have to depend on a lobbyist to tell me how programs work. I do it every day. I work with those safety net programs. I work with our seniors. I thank you, and may God.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ashley. State Senator Donzella James, your closing statement, ma'am.
Thank you very much, everyone. According to Proverbs 29:18, where there is no vision, the people perish. And by building and reinvesting in our community, investing and creating quality jobs, putting people to work, working to eliminate drugs like the opioid program that I've been working on, the economic development bill that I passed for the film industry tax credits. I was #2 on that particular bill, and so many other things. The hate crime bill needs to be the next thing that we participate in, the hate crimes bill. And that is what I'm working very hard on right now with others to pass. We have to have someone fiscally responsible at this time, because the pandemic will surely end one day. We don't know when, but when it does, we need to be able to have solid, good leadership, those who know how to pass bills, who know how to listen to the people. I have an open door policy. I allow everyone to come in and talk to me. And when they talk to me, they don't just talk. We try to find solutions to their problems or answer their concerns. So we need good, solid leadership who is energetic, who's educational, who's experienced and knowledgeable and know-how. So I offer myself to serve once again. It's been a true honor to serve, and I hope that you will vote Donzella James. Send me back, and I won't let you down. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you very much, Senator James. The time is near, and I'd like to thank Councilwomen Gomes and Willis and Elise Fisher for having me in this evening as your moderator. I'm Maria Boynton, and I will see you on the radio in the morning. Thank you.
Dr. Boynton, you did an awesome job. Thank you so much. We're reading the comments in the chat box, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback. And so this forum will be shared in our newsletters. As stated, early voting started today, and we're encouraging everyone to watch these videos, watch the forums that have taken place, and make an informed decision. Thank each candidate, Senator Nakima Williams, candidate Karen Ashley, candidate Linda Pritchett, candidate Dr. Kelly Johnson, Senator Donzella James. Thank you so much for your participation, and thank you to my colleague for partnering with me, and thank you to the Cedar Grove Community Club President Elise Fisher for partnering with me in doing this. I will defer over to Councilmember Gomes at this time. Good luck and have a good evening. Councilmember Gomes.
I won't prolong this. This was actually one of the best forums that I've attended in a while. And you all were very informative. I do believe our residents will enjoy this. If they weren't able to catch it again, we will put it in our newsletter. Thank you all for offering your service. Also, those who are currently incumbents, thank you for all that you do. Again, And thank you. I know I butchered your name earlier, Dr. Boynton. I am so sorry. But again,
Okay.
thank you for doing a wonderful job and keeping us on course. So thank you.
Certainly.
And don't forget to vote. Don't forget to vote.
All right, Elise Fisher, did you want to close us out?
I will close with saying thank you as well, and I will echo what Councilwoman Gumbs has just said. Voting has begun. Please vote. We need it. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good night.
Stay safe. Please stay safe. All right.